Hello, Year 4. Welcome to your 7th topic lesson this term. We are going to be looking at the Roman army today. So our WALT is we are learning to understand what life was like in the Roman army. So please could you write today's date, Monday the 3rd of February, 2021. No, it's not the 3rd, is it? Not the 3rd at all, it's the 8th. Monday the 8th of February 2021, and we are learning to understand what life was like in the Roman army. Please write your date and your WALT and underline it. Lovely. Right, you'll have to excuse my voice. I've got a bit of a cold, I'm afraid. I look a bit like Rudolph. So I sound a bit stuffy, but hopefully you can hear me anyway. So our steps to success today. By the end of the lesson, you need to understand how the Roman army was organised, understand what life was like in the Roman army, and you need to be able to empathise with Roman soldiers. You need to be able to understand how they might have felt. So before we move on to that, I just wanted to say what a wonderful job you did last week in our topic lesson where you were building your Roman buildings. I had some really fantastic pictures sent in. They really made me smile. So I've just put a couple up here for you to see. Some of them look very Roman, some of them just look a little bit of fun, but I'm glad you had fun with it. So, this is a Roman soldier, and he is saying, what do you think life was like for me? So I just want you to pause the video before we find out any more and have a think. What would life be like for a Roman soldier? Let's find out a bit more. So the Roman army was the largest and the meanest fighting force in the ancient world. Their brilliance was the key to Rome's success in building its empire. So they wouldn't have built such a big and impressive empire if they didn't have such a good army. One of the main reasons that Rome became so powerful was the strength of its army. It conquered a vast empire that stretched from Britain all the way to the Middle East, and we've already learned about that. And its army was really advanced. Its soldiers had the best training, they had the best weapons, they had the best armour. It was really serious business being a Roman soldier. And when the Romans invaded Britain, their army was so good that they won against armies that were 10 times as big as they were. So really impressive. Now, the army changed over time. So it started off quite small and then it began to grow. So the Roman power grew, and as the Roman power grew, more and more people had to join the army. Okay. And they had to fight further away from home. And we've already looked at the countries that they fought in. So being a soldier was becoming a full-time job. It was no longer something that you did and then you went back home again. And you were in that job for quite a long time. You weren't sent home at the end of your battles. Roman soldiers were grouped into large clumps of people called legions. Legions were divided into 10 cohorts of 480 men. The cohorts were divided into 6 centuries of about 80 men, led by a centurion. And the centuries were divided into 10 groups of 8 men who shared a tent or a barrack room. So you were sharing a room or a tent with 8 men if you were in the Roman army. Only men were allowed in the army, no women were allowed. And there were 2 types of Roman soldiers. You were either a legionary or an auxiliary. So the legions, or the legionaries, were made up of recommended Roman citizens. So they were people who were Romans. Okay? They were the elite, the very best soldiers. To be a legionary, you had to be over 17 years old and you had to be Roman. Okay? You had to be fighting fit. If you were too weak or you were too short, then they rejected you from the army. And you had to agree that you were going to be in the army for 20 years. A long time. Okay? Legionaries were not allowed to be married whilst they were in the army. So that's quite a big sacrifice, isn't it? If you were not a Roman citizen, if you were not Roman, If you're not from Rome, an auxiliary, you were an auxiliary. Okay, and auxiliaries often had special skills such as horse riding and archery. And when they retired, when they'd done their time in the army, they received citizenship. They were allowed to become Romans. They were only paid a third of a legionary's wage. So a legionary got 3 times as much money as an auxiliary. The auxiliaries guarded forts and frontiers, and they fought in battles. And they were often put right at the front of the battles, which is the most dangerous position to be in. They had to sign up for 25 years of service. So they had to do 25 years as a legionary before they were allowed to retire and become a Roman citizen. But if they survived, they were also given a gift of land that they could farm. They got their own little plot of land. And they often retired together in military towns called colonia. Now, legionaries were famous for their really good equipment. So they've got really fantastic helmets, they've got this armor here, they've got their shields, and they've got their weapons. And these are really high quality bits of equipment, particularly compared to other armies at the time. And one of the most impressive things was their shield, and this is known as a scutum. The shield was made of wood and leather and was carried on the soldier's left-hand side. It was decorated in red, brown, and beige, and it featured the Roman eagle. The metal boss, this bit here, in the middle of the shield, could be used for punching the enemy. The shield was curved to protect the body, and it was also rectangular in shape, so that you could join lots of the shields together during a battle and protect a group of soldiers. They were really, really well designed. Now let's learn a bit about a legionary's training. So a legionary had to do these things. They had to learn to build camps, swim, sling stones, ride horses, mount and dismount horses fully armed with their shield and no stirrups. Well, that's quite hard to do, to jump onto a horse and off the horse, but without stirrups. They had to do a drill once a day or twice a day if they were newer to the job. They had to march 30 kilometres 3 times a month, wearing their armour, which weighed 20 kilograms. Now, 20 kilograms is the weight of about 10 bags of sugar. So if you can go to your kitchen and you can find a bag of sugar, it's about 10 of those bags of sugar. That's a really, really heavy weight to carry on your 30-kilometre walk. And 30 kilometres, that's pretty much walking from here to Gloucester and back again. That's a long way to walk wearing those 10 bags of sugar. They also had to learn how to hold a sword, a spear, and how to fight mock battles with weapons which had covered tips for safety. So they fought pretend battles as part of their training. So, some soldiers had special skills. They shot bows and arrows, they flung stones from slingshots, or they could swim in rivers and surprise an enemy. Roman soldiers usually lined up for battle in a tight formation. After a terrifying burst of arrows and artillery, the Roman soldiers marched at a slow, steady pace towards the enemy. At the last minute, they hurled their javelins and they drew their swords before charging into the enemy. Then they used cavalry, which is soldiers riding on horses, to chase anyone who tried to run away. Okay, so we've already talked about the Romans' shields, and they sometimes put their shields into different formations as part of their battle strategy. So this one on the left is the tortoise, and it was used to advance towards the enemy by creating a shell out of shields around a group of soldiers. So you can see how that might be effective. This one here on the right is called the wedge, and it was used to divide the enemy because they would create a V shape and force it through the crowd. So they would walk towards, or probably run, towards their enemy in this V shape so that they had to the enemy had to part its army and the Romans would be able to go through. We've got another one here called the rappel cavalry, which was used to protect against soldiers on horses. So the soldiers used their shields as protection and they threw their spears. And finally, we've got the orb, and this was used when the army had been split. The legionaries would protect the archers and the officers, forming a circle with their shields. So they are protecting the people in the middle. And the Roman army also used to build walls, and this is a very, very famous wall called Hadrian's Wall, which they built between England and Scotland. But wall building was another form of defence. Now, there were good sides and bad sides to being in the army. So there were punishments and there were rewards. The discipline was very harsh. So if the soldiers did not follow the orders, then they got beaten. Deserters, so people who ran away or left the army, and soldiers who fell asleep while they were on lookout were beaten to death by their fellow soldiers. More positively, though, there were awards for bravery for different ranks, such as medals, armbands, and neckbands, and even gold crowns and silver spears were given to officers. So if you did bad things, there was punishment. If you did good things, then there was a lot of respect. So Emmett thinks that this Roman soldier is saying, Emmett thinks my life was bad and he wouldn't want it. What do you think? So Emmett doesn't fancy being beaten and putting himself at the risk of being in the army. I wonder what you think. Do you think they had a good life or a bad life? If you get the chance, pause the video and have a chat with somebody. I think it's quite a balance, really, isn't it? I mean, they were well respected, they were well paid. It was a good job to have in Roman times. However, they weren't allowed to get married. They had to sign up for 20 years if they were legionary, 25 years if they were an auxiliary. And there was the potential punishments if they did things wrong. So it's difficult. I'm not sure how I feel. Your task for today is you have got to either write a diary entry explaining what a day in the life of a Roman soldier was like, or create a comic strip explaining what life was like for a Roman soldier. If you would like to go deeper today, you need to add in their thoughts and their feelings. So your diary entry will be set up something like this. I've got my date and I've got my WALT, and I put, "Dear diary, wow, what a day I've had. I woke up early," what can I say, "to the sound of the snores of my 7 roommates. Gosh, they were loud. I knew I had a hard day ahead. It was March Day, and I had to carry, and I'll let you carry on from there. So that's the beginning of my diary. If you're a bit stuck, you are welcome to magpie the beginning of my diary and then carry on writing. But I would like you to put yourself in the shoes of a Roman soldier and tell me about your day. Now, some of you might say, actually, I don't really fancy doing that writing. I'd like to do a comic strip instead, and that is absolutely fine, as long as you get the same information across. So I've set up my comic strip. I've got 4 boxes to start with, and I've got, I woke up early and rushed to get my porridge. What could I put in this box? I could say it was a hard morning because it was March Day and I had to carry however many kilograms. Okay, use the facts that we've learned about today. We could then have a box about, oh, let me see, battle. So we rushed into battle and we used the orb formation. We could have a box about somebody being punished, maybe. There were all sorts of things you could put into your diary or your comic strip, pretending to be a soldier in the army. So I am going to leave my video on this page just in case you would like to pause it to help you with your work today. Well done, Year 4. I really look forward to seeing what you come up with and what you send through to me. Hopefully you've enjoyed learning about the Roman army. I have also put a link for you to a BBC video in the daily planner, which tells you a little bit more. So maybe watch that before you start your work today. I will see you soon. Bye.